Hello from Global Legal Blockchain Consortium annual meeting coinciding with ILTACon 2018 at National Harbor, Maryland. I'm Amy Braunz.
I'm Cori Goudchaux.
I'm Trent Carlyle.
I'm Brad Clements.
I'm David Berger.
I'm Peter Buck.
And we're on the road with Legal Talk Network. And we're back. Thank you so much for joining us on the road. It's a pleasure to be here. First, we'll go around the table and give each other a short bio. Cori?
I'm Cori Goudchaux. I am the Vice President of Integra Ledger, the legal blockchain for law. I live in California, Orange County, and happy to be here.
I'm Trent Carlyle, CTO, co-founder of Lawgical, the parent company behind Serve Manager. Serve Manager is a product that basically manages the entire lifecycle of service process.
I'm Brad Clements. I'm the Chief Software Architect at NetDocuments, and I have spent my entire career working on legal technology and specifically on document management.
Hi, I'm David Berger. I'm the CTO of Integra Ledger, and I was the Chief Architect of the Integra Ledger blockchain.
Hi, Peter Buck, VP of Product Strategy with NetDocuments, and my role is to have fun, bring technology to the practice of law.
Great. So I'm glad that you all are here. I know that many of you are participating in a session during ILTACon on how to build your first blockchain app. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that session.
So the number one rule of developing blockchain is don't talk about blockchain. My point being that you have to make things brutally simple and really hide the intricacies of the blockchain, whether it's Ethereum or Hyperledger, and really appeal toward the skills that the typical developer already has.
What's funny, Brad and I had a great conversation the other day about platform wars. You know, development teams, software teams love platform wars. In blockchain, there's so much activity, so many platforms emerging and falling away that it's a fascinating time, but David's right. You have to focus in on the business drivers. Why are we doing it? And I think Jay Hull from the Integra team has done a nice job organizing this session this week to sort of peel back the layers and let's get practical, because there's a lot of huge advantage to the technology, but it has to be done practically.
Right, and so as part of that session, we're not only going to demonstrate some of the applications or some of the proofs of concept that we have developed, but we're going to explain why we made the decisions we made in implementing those, what some of the trade-offs were, what some of the missing pieces are that the industry still needs to come together to help make this a reality.
Sure. What do you feel like the most exciting prospects in blockchain are right now? Do you think it's foundational, or do you think it's the new applications, practical applications that are emerging?
So I think that blockchain is still a bit of Wild West. Everything is in flux. I think that a lot of what's going on is a war who solves the transaction problem first. The blockchains are still very slow. Mm-hmm. So the Ethereum guys are talking about next generation million transactions a second, and we've seen some alternate blockchains achieve hundreds of thousands of transactions a second. The big boys, Hyperledger and Ethereum as it stands now, are still much lower. So a lot of what we do is figure out how to deal within that constraint.
Sure. So to that note, I know with the Global Legal Blockchain Consortium here for the annual meeting, they have just now announced the forming of the technical committee for the GLBC. We're lucky enough to actually have three of you that are a part of this technical committee with us here today. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what the focus will be for the technical committee for the GLBC?
Sure. I mean, right now, Integra has donated the Integra Ledger, and we took our guesses about what the most appropriate blockchain technology is and what the approach is, but they were largely guesses. And NetDocuments did some of the first integrations, so even a lot of how the API functions was in response to their feedback. And while two smart technologists working together will come up with something good, we're hoping to open up to the entire community to get feedback from everyone and really come to something that's enterprise ready.
And going even one step higher in the infrastructure layer, it's not enough to just have the technical standards in place and the API in place, but there has to be agreement about the formats of transactions that will be recorded on the blockchain in order to have interoperability across applications. And I'm hoping that the GLBC's technical committee can play a role in setting some of those standards that will allow applications from multiple vendors to interoperate. And that's where you really get a lot of value here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So look into your guys' session later on in the week. Are there going to be demos involved in your session? And if so, are they foundational or are they more actual functional applicational layer?
So on the NetDocuments side, we are showing some demos, and they are things, what we're showing are bits of functionality that have value, but are foundational in the sense that there are much higher value transactions that could be built upon these foundations.
Right. I know a lot of people are really struggling with blockchain's the buzzword. Everybody knows it exists, but what is it really solving for? Can you speak to some of the things that you're finding, either in your own practices or in other people's that you're seeing out in the marketplace, that are actually solving for X?
So one of the things that we realized in our attempt to make things as easy to integrate as possible was that we needed to keep our API brutally simple. So we decided to focus on 3 foundational services. Common identity, or for the geeks out there, I call it foreign key as a service. Proof of existence, primarily of document hashes or informational hashes. So NetDocuments will be showing demos on that. And some work with PGP public key registries or digital signing, and actually NetDocuments is also one of the first to start working with that. And to answer a previous question, what will Integra be focusing on this session? Just how easy it is to use a system like this. And Serve Manager actually set the record for an integration. They actually obviously planned for a couple of weeks how to do things, but they actually managed to get the first piece of integration in about 40 minutes, which is the current record. So we would like to see someone try to topple that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for us, the proof of concept, and we have an existing product that is, doing some of the things that we're mimicking on blockchain, but blockchain becomes that kind of last layer that is untamperable and becomes the definitive place where you're going to get this data related to service or process. So for us, it was just another layer of trust and validity of what that person said they were doing in the field, which typically comes in the form of a piece of paper a lot of times,
Sure.
is now being posted to blockchain, and that's not being tampered with.
Great. Peter, I know you guys have a presentation coming up, and you guys were one of the first movers, at least I know with Integra, and one of the first to implement some blockchain functionality within your system. Can you expand a little bit on what your presentation is and where you guys have chosen to use the platform?
I think it's a key question. For lawyers, what's the standard for technology use? It's email. So
Right.
we have to, our goals are to make blockchain as platform technology as easy as email. And so we're going to break apart today or this week some pieces about how do we encrypt attachments and protect them. So what do lawyers send most of the time? Attachments. Where do you ask them? Where do they store them? In my inbox. And so if we can use blockchain, which Brad and the NetDocuments technical team will show, to share a public key, that's the piece that allows you to decrypt messages on the blockchain, now we can make it super simple. So that's goal number one, it has to set to that standard. And the second I wanted to make the point, and we're going to show, is the idea of in law, there's this concept of agreement and repudiation. And so repudiation is simply the concept that is what I'm showing you true? And there's no better framework than blockchain to be able to establish a trust network that through mathematics can verify the content you're looking at is accurate. And so that's the second demo we'll show, is how do we actually publish documents to what I call keep heroes and foes together in the digital economy.
Have you found any pushback or mostly receptiveness or excited when you're speaking with the end user and the clientele that you guys are working with from an enterprise perspective?
Well, I think Brad's team has been able to turn blockchain into a checkbox, and that's, I think, back to the standard that we want to be next year not talking about blockchain, but talking
Right.
about more of these apps on top of it. So I think we're achieving that, but we have to talk about the technologies first.
Absolutely.
So one of the more recent members to join the Global Legal Blockchain Consortium is Dr. No, which is a platform for doing medical records. And the compliance issues in medical records is as bad or maybe even worse than what we're facing in general legal.
Sure.
So they have an issue with HCA, who sets the HIPAA compliance, not allowing hashing of data, even with the extra protection you can use. So he did a quick integration with Integra into a system, but ended up turning it off, and he's really looking to the GLBC and other similar groups to step forward and set standards so that the medical records community will accept blockchain.
I know that throughout the sessions during the week, obviously the GLBC, and from a technical perspective, there's going to be an entire track devoted to blockchain this week. What do you feel the most exciting applications or implications into the legal space could or will be throughout the week that you guys are aware of?
So I think one of the bits for the state of Vermont, for example, allows the introduction and authentication of evidence if it's on the blockchain. That's a very powerful example where now it's a platform that drives acceptance. And so I think that's one of the key emergence that's going to happen. And then back to the friend and foe, we have a digital economy. Value is derived by speed. Speed needs to have trust. Blockchain allows in the correct networks to enable that trust.
Is there anybody in particular that you are looking forward to hearing, or is there a specific track throughout ILTA this week that you are most looking forward to?
Well, I know the Integra people have some exciting announcements coming up. I'm looking forward to hearing the details on those.
Yes, there is. There's some exciting stuff coming. So before we close it out today, I have one last question for you. If our listeners would like to follow up, how can they reach you?
Trent Carlyle can be reached at trent@servemanager.com and at Trent Carlyle on Twitter.
Brad Clements, just brad@netdocuments.com.
David Berger, dberger@integraledger.com, Twitter, CTO in the cloud.
Peter Buck, NetDocuments, you can find me on Twitter at @backofthenapkin.
I want to thank all of our guests for joining us today. We also want to thank our listeners for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please rate us in the Apple Podcast. We'll see you next time for another episode of On the Road with Legal Talk Network.
If you'd like more information about what you've heard today, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find us on Twitter and Facebook, or download our free Legal Talk Network app in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.